Hey, how's it going, guys? So, what is cooking up? Well, I'll tell you what is cooking. Ubisoft, because I think they have really dug themselves into more controversy than they needed to be. Because I watched a lot of videos on this subject, and what could I say? What hasn't been said about the deep dives that have gone on into Ubisoft, Thomas Lockley, the whole situation with Yasuke? If you know, you know, and it's a lot more gray area than I actually thought it was when I first said, yeah, no, I really don't care about the division on this one. And honestly, I still stand by that principle of how we just kind of divide ourselves on bad things, and just things that really don't matter. But after Ubisoft released their apology that we've all seen, the one in red, that basically just was a corporate way of saying we're going to move forward on this regardless of what you think. And, a lot of it was just dismissive towards a lot of people who were criticizing it. And a lot of the people who are criticizing it are the Japanese folk who really just don't want to have their history tampered with. And especially I have deep dived into Thomas Lockley and how much fire he is under currently right now, because honestly it's sad, because that character is really cool with all the animes and stuff that have come out with it, but when you see the questionable nature of what went down, I guarantee if you look into it you'll know what I'm talking about. It's just kind of disappointing because you don't want a castle built on sand, let me just say that. And I'm severely of the mind that everybody should be able to take part in any sort of culture that they wanted to. And I think that's what made Yasuke such a compelling story, is that a complete outsider came in and took part in a culture that was rather exclusive at the time. I myself am a very big fan of martial arts. If you understand like the early history of Japanese jiu-jitsu and judo and everything like that, a lot of people in the olden days said you weren't really allowed to teach it to any outsiders. So you understand in Japanese culture overall just how exclusive a lot of things were. But when you see Ubisoft's reaction to the whole thing, like they're just kind of above it all, you're basically setting back the sharing of ideas by many years. And sure, I feel like some of it is a little nitpicky. Like I've actually seen some cases where they're picking out that the chopsticks are folded wrong and everything like that, and they're mixing up Chinese and Japanese architecture, which sometimes I feel like you want to really be accurate on that. If you have one job and that's to basically know the difference between Japanese and Chinese culture, I mean, that's not really that hard to do. But in a sense, I digress. But up until this point, I was giving Ubisoft a healthy benefit of the doubt, because obviously it's already work that's been established. So obviously they had some stuff to base it off of. So you can't really think that they're being 110% defamatory at that point. But after the Thomas Lockley controversy comes out to where it's in question on how much of this he actually made up or how much of this was just for publicity, that the whole book could have just been a house of cards itself that might actually just fall down soon, I think that puts a gigantic responsibility on Ubisoft's back to start distancing yourself from that situation and then say, okay, we understand why Japan is a little upset with us right now. We need to come to a compromise. And I don't expect there to be a compromise because I'm rather cynical, and I know a lot of people, especially in the gaming community, like to double down. And I want to see Assassin's Creed Shadows be released at some point and really succeed, because I feel like if you just move forward and rush out this project, despite a lot of people having good reason to be questionable about what's going on, even though, yeah, a lot of people are saying that Assassin's Creed has always been about mixing fact and fiction and history. I know I love Assassin's Creed. It is one of my favorites, but there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. Just like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, yeah, the chances of Medusa and the Minotaur actually existing are very, very minuscule. But they used lore, they used a way that doesn't cross into the overall core game too much, and they achieved a perfect balance that allowed areas like that to really shine, so it could be its own thing. And then that way you walk away from those mythical beast side missions and say, wow, that was actually fun and it worked. It was very fictitious, but you got it to work in a way that was believable in that universe. But if they don't really push this game back at this point, I think it's going to go out in more controversy than praise. Where if they were to say, okay, let's see if we could make some things or turn some things around to achieve that perfect balance or try to revise a few things. And look, I understand that when you're at this stage in game development or any sort of development, it's hard to make rewrites. You have to go to the core and scramble some things around a little bit. And it's also very expensive. Remember, in Sonic the Hedgehog movie came out and a lot of people were upset about the CGI. They remade it because they wanted to listen to the fans, but it cost the company a lot of money because making CGI, especially that high quality, takes a lot of people, a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of money. But I'd rather have it come out in 2025 and be a little revised and more balanced in that way than continue to just say, if you don't like this game, you're the problem. Because Ubisoft has already had a very mixed reception and a lot of people are already turning on it before all this controversy. So this isn't going to help the hole that a lot of these AAA game developers are in. Because social media has allowed AAA game developers to kind of show what they're like behind all the scenes, behind all the advertisements, and who's really behind the mask. And a lot of it doesn't sit right with a lot of consumers, and rightfully so. And this isn't just a Ubisoft thing, but this is big corporations overall, where I think sometimes they forget that you need the consumer because you might be the boss, but when you're in charge of any sort of company or an LLC or something like that, you work for your customer base. You still have to answer to somebody, otherwise your business is going to fail. And there's a saying, the fish stinks from the head down. But it would be beneficial towards their reputation right now at this point too, because a lot of these loot boxes, a lot of these DLCs, a lot of these overcharging for the golden editions of game, a lot has been boiling over to this. And look, I could say, okay, I just won't buy the expensive version of the game so many times until I realize I probably have a longer fuse than most people. Because this could probably cost Assassin's Creed to go out in a really bad whimper that it doesn't deserve, especially when the game's been around this long for this amount of time. I remember when this came out when I was in middle school. That's when it really launched off, and as an adult now, years later, it's still with me, and it still brought me joy. And you know what? You could probably do something where you make Yasuke like playable character still, you know, because I know that there's a question of how much time he actually spent in Japan, and if you're going over a game's yearly span, usually these games take place over the course of 10 years. But maybe still put him in a playable sequence that would be similar to Bayek in Amunet in Assassin's Creed Origins, right? You remember that, where you would have little sequences here and there. That would still be a very cool idea to toss around. I'm just tossing those around. They might come up with something completely different, but, you know, like I said, to just kind of rush it out with a corporate, we're sorry, but we're really not sorry kind of attitude, it's just bad for game developers at this point, and it also gives more justification to the gamers who are consuming your product. But that's really all I got to say about that. That's my 2 cents. Obviously, I don't have a single say in what goes down in the game release. Now, if the game is released like this, am I still going to buy it? Probably, because I'm going to want to go through it and see what actually I liked and what, you know, didn't work, how much of it was outrage, because there's a difference between how the game's advertised and how it comes out as, but I don't want to use that as a dismissal tool. But that's what my thoughts are. Do you think that anything else should be done? Do you think they should just move forward? What are your thoughts? Leave it down in the comment section below. I'm going to try to ask people to keep it non-politically charged, like on a partisan spectrum, because that's what a lot of people tend to do. I just, you know, try your best to keep it to nuanced thought or not. If it isn't, I'll probably just ignore it, but that's what I got to say. Peace out.